This is World News Program coming to you live from Algiers. I'm Miriam Zian, and these are the headlines. On the 35th day of the U.S. Zionist war on Iran, the IRGC launches the 93rd wave of True Promise 4 operation, and Iran announced the downing of a U.S. F-15 fighter jet. In developments regarding the Strait of Hormuz crisis, Trump says the U.S. can reopen the strait with more time. Iran warned the UN Security Council against any provocative step regarding the strait, and the European Union cautioned against a long-term energy shock. In Lebanon, martyrs and wounded have been reported in a Zionist bombing that targeted a mosque east of the country. Hezbollah confirmed targeting settlements and strategic sites deep inside the Zionist entity's territory. And UNIFIL announces injuries among its personnel as a result of an explosion inside one of their bases in the south. Welcome back. Iran's Mehr news agency reported that 3 people were killed in an airstrike on a residential area north of Tehran. Earlier, Iranian state TV said attacks hit the district of Mahrabad west of the capital and Ulenjik in the north, causing damage to Shahid Besheti University. An official in Iran, Khuzestan province, says 5 airstrikes hit Desful and Avaz in the southwest with no casualties reported. The Iranian Red Crescent says a drone attack hit its warehouse in Bushehr at dawn, destroying 2 aid containers, 2 buses, and an ambulance. Meanwhile, Tasnim reports the Revolutionary Guard in Kasvin shot down an Israeli drone east of Al-Mout. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it launched the 93rd wave of True Promise 4 operations Friday afternoon, targeting sites in northern and central Israel. The IRGC said in a statement that the strikes were carried out jointly with allied groups using long-range ballistic missiles and suicide drones, hitting military gatherings and support centers in the western Galilee, Haifa, Kafr Kana, and Krayut. Earlier, Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it had launched a salvo of strikes targeting military sites in Gulf countries and the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln in northern Indian Ocean with 4 cruise missiles. It added that U.S. pilots and aviation engineers in the UAE were targeted with ballistic missiles along with a heavy strike on a U.S. MQ-1 drone unit at Ali Salim Air Base in Kuwait. Iran's army said it shot down a U.S. F-15E fighter jet. The Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters said the aircraft was downed in Markazi province in central Iran. Fars news agency reports the wreckage bears markings indicating it was based at AAF Laqnath in the UK. Nabil Khazini has more.
The sky over Iran turned deadly. A U.S. F-15E has been shot down. 1 crew member rescued, another still missing. It happened deep in Iranian airspace. Tehran says the jet was completely destroyed. U.S. officials confirm the loss. Search operations continue. A reward promised to Iranians who capture and hand over pilots alive. This reflects a dramatic turn in the conflict's aftermath.
Following false claims by the U.S. president about the complete destruction of Iran's air defense system, an American hostile fighter jet was shot down in central Iranian airspace by a newly developed advanced aerospace defense system operated by the IRGC under the control of the country's integrated air defense network. The jet was completely destroyed, and further search operations are still ongoing.
In Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump says the federal government can't afford to pay for daycare because the nation is fighting wars. He insists those programs should be funded by the states, not Washington, while the federal government focuses on military priorities. The cost of the war is now visible more than battlefields.
And I actually said to them, I said to Russell, don't send any money for daycare because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too.
Back to Iran and far to the north, civilians pay the price. The B1 bridge in Karaj was hit twice, still under construction, but lives were lost. At least 8 dead, 95 wounded. Families celebrating Nature Day caught in the blast. No warning, no escape. And now, how many more civilians will pay the price before the conflict finds its limit?
Iran's foreign ministry has described the destruction of bridges as a clear war crime, warning that repeated attacks on civilian infrastructure reveal the ultimate aim of U.S. Zionist strikes on Iran. In a statement made Friday, it said the attacks are part of an aggressive strategy to cripple the economy and society and undermine Iran's sovereignty, stressing Tehran's right to respond forcefully to defend its territory. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has responded to U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to return Iran to the Stone Age, saying the destruction of a nation amounts to a serious war crime threat. In a message to the American people Friday, he questioned whether boasting about bombing a country serves U.S. interests or only damages America's global image. And fires broke out in operational units at Kuwait's Mina al-Ahmadi refinery after a drone attack with no injuries reported. Kuwait's military says its air defenses intercepted hostile missiles and drones over the country, with explosions caused by the interceptions. Separately, the Electricity and Water Ministry says an Iranian attack hit a power and desalination plant, causing material damage as emergency crews work to maintain operations. And UAE authorities say one person was killed and 16 others injured in 2 separate incidents in Abu Dhabi caused by falling debris from air defense interceptions. In Habshan gas facilities, an Egyptian national was killed and 4 others injured, with significant damage reported. In a separate incident in Ashban near Zayed military city, 12 people were injured by fallen debris. And Yemen's Houthi group says it carried out a military operation targeting what it described as vital Zionist sites in the Jaffa area. Military spokesman Yahya Sariya said in a televised statement Thursday the operation used a salvo of ballistic missiles and successfully hit its targets.
نفذت قواتنا المسلحة بعون الله تعالى.
Our armed forces, by the help of Almighty God, carried out a military operation using a barrage of ballistic missiles targeting vital sites of the Israeli enemy in the occupied Jaffa area. This operation was conducted jointly with our Mujahideen brothers in Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it successfully achieved its objectives by the grace of God.
The Houthi spokesman described the battle as important and exceptional, saying their military involvement is gradual and that future actions will respond to any escalation or de-escalation by the enemy.
تؤكد القوات المسلحة اليمنية.
The Yemeni armed forces affirm that their military intervention in this important and exceptional battle is a gradual one. Relying on God and seeking His assistance, they will not stop at this level of involvement, but will respond to future developments according to the level of escalation or de-escalation determined by the enemy.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Friday the United States could reopen the Strait of Hormuz and seize oil if given more time. In a post on Truth Social, he did not explain how the U.S. would end Iran's control of the strait or which oil he meant, but claimed Washington could easily take control and profit significantly. The UN Security Council has postponed a vote on a Bahrain bloc or backed resolution allowing defensive force to protect shipping in the Strait of Hormuz from Iranian attacks. The vote, originally scheduled for Friday morning, was delayed because Good Friday is a UN holiday and no new date has been set. And Iran warned the UN Security Council Friday against any provocative steps ahead of a vote on a draft resolution allowing force to protect shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said any provocative actions by what he called the aggressors or their supporters, including within the Security Council, would only complicate the situation further.
Any provocative step by the aggressors and their supporters, including within the UN Security Council regarding the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, will only further complicate the situation.
And the European Union says it is considering all options, including fuel rationing and tapping emergency oil reserves, to prepare for long-term energy shock from the Middle East conflict. EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jørgensen told the Financial Times Friday that Europe's energy crisis will be prolonged, with high prices expected to persist for a very long time. The White House has asked the Congress to approve a $1.5 trillion defense budget for next year amid the war with Iran. The request represents a $454 billion, or 42% increase over the 2026 defense spending level, marking the largest annual rise since World War II, according to U.S. media. And China has expressed opposition to attacks on civilian facilities in Iran during a press conference in Beijing Friday. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning urged all parties in the Iran conflict to immediately hold military operations and return to political negotiations as soon as possible.
The military strikes launched by the United States and Israel against Iran were not authorized by the United Nations Security Council and clearly violated international law. China opposes attacks on civilian facilities. The relevant parties should immediately cease military operations and get back on the track of political settlement as soon as possible so as to avoid a humanitarian disaster of even greater gravity.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Friday that Vladimir Putin is spending significant time addressing the Middle East crisis. In a regular press briefing in Moscow, Peskov noted that the situation in the region continues to escalate.
The president keeps working on the crisis in the Middle East, which is developing and unfortunately escalating further. This work, as you can see, has been taking quite a lot of time in recent days, this week.
2 Lebanese civilians were killed and 11 others, including women and children, injured after Israeli strikes hit a mosque in Sahmar, West Beqa, eastern Lebanon, as worshippers were leaving, according to Lebanese news agency reports. Lebanese media reported that 5 Syrian nationals were killed in a Zionist strike on a farm between Ramdiya and Kanisa in southern Lebanon. Earlier, Lebanon's official news agency reported 1 Syrian killed and others injured in a strike on the Sha'atiyya area. Lebanon's branch of Hezbollah says its forces targeted Israeli settlements and strategic sites in the occupied Palestinian territories. In statements Friday, the group said it hit 2 Israeli military gatherings at the Masraf site and Hunin barracks with direct rocket strikes. Hezbollah added that following earlier warnings to northern settlements, it also struck several, including Kiryat Shmona for the 5th time and Dishon. The Hebrew media outlets have revealed that the Zionist occupation forces are preparing a plan for political leadership to establish a buffer zone in southern Lebanon. by displacing most of the area's residents as part of the entity's efforts to annex more Lebanese territory. Hussama Ayadi reports.
As a continuation of its crimes in the Palestinian territories, the entity continues its expansionist arrogance in southern Lebanon, where its forces announced a plan to establish what it calls a buffer zone. Following the incursion of Zionist soldiers into numerous towns and villages in southern Lebanon since March the 8th, under the pretext of protecting settlements, it has become clear that the incursion was merely a preemptive step to establish a buffer zone encompassing 10% of Lebanon's total area.
We were 7 people in the house: my grandmother, my husband, my children, and my friend. And I was hosting 4 families before the evacuation. I was hosting 4 displaced families whose homes had been destroyed.
A month after the renewed Zionist aggression against Lebanon, the Israeli entity announced the prevention of the return of more than 600,000 displaced persons, forcibly displaced from the south of Litani River to its north. It further escalated its ambitions, expanding the areas of forced displacement beyond the northern reaches of the Zahrani River, destroying dozens of villages and towns.
We, as the people of the south, we do not acknowledge him. This defense minister, let him speak in his own country. Let him deal with his own people.
The Zionist-imposed reality is confronted by the Lebanese at every moment with an unparalleled epic of steadfastness. Its hallmark is clinging to the land and rejecting all Zionist displacement plans, which now threaten the very existence of the Lebanese state.
Here at Sport City in Beirut, we're dealing with another influx of displaced overnight, where we had 3 big strikes not far from here. And each time there's another military strike, that displaces more families. And that's people arriving with trauma injuries, with all sorts of needs. And what's really clear here is we've got to protect humanitarians, we've got to protect health workers. Too many health workers are being killed in this conflict. It's one of the really striking, chilling aspects of military action right now.
The Lebanese are living through a pivotal moment today, as the usurping entity threatens to occupy all of their country's territory, beginning with turning southern Lebanon into a no-go zone for its inhabitants. However, not everything the occupation plans will happen, as long as the Lebanese people remain steadfast on their land, resisting the schemes of destruction and division.
The UN Interim Force in Lebanon says 3 of its soldiers were injured Friday in an explosion of unknown origin at one of its bases, the 3rd such incident this week. Spokesperson Candice Ardel said the blast near Adaisa seriously injured 2 soldiers, all being evacuated to a hospital, while the cause remains unknown. And since Sunday, 3 Indonesian troops have been killed in southern Lebanon amid a month-long conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. The United Nations reopened its headquarters in Khartoum Thursday evening alongside the resumption of the UN Development Programme activities. At the reopening ceremony attended by UN officials and Khartoum representative, Sudan's Foreign Minister Mohiuddin Salam said the reopening sends an important message to international partners about restoring peace and stability in the country.
We intended to send a message to our partners in the United Nations that we are working together, side by side, for the benefit of the people of Sudan and for the return of peace, security and stability throughout Sudan.
Sudan's foreign minister added that his country is fully open to all initiatives for achieving lasting peace, while firmly rejecting any truce that would allow what he called criminal militias to return.
As long as the capital, which was seized by the criminal militia, is liberated, then God willing Kordofan will return, Darfur will return, and all of Sudan will return very soon. We in Sudan, government and the people, are advocates of peace, and we are members of the United Nations. The United Nations has a charter and a constitution, and we are very open and very flexible in moving forward together to achieve a lasting peace. I repeat, a lasting peace, not a peace brought by groups here and there.
For her part, the UN resident coordinator in Sudan, Denise Brown, said reopening the UN headquarters in Khartoum is an important step to support Sudanese affected by the war, noting that it will improve access to the northern states where life remains difficult due to the ongoing blockades.
The job of the UN right now in the Sudan is to support people affected by the war. That is our sole objective, which means we need to be everywhere. So being in Khartoum also means we can be easier access to northern state, to White Nile, to North Kordofan, to South Kordofan, where I was a few weeks ago.
And at least 5 civilians have been killed and several others, including 2 police officers, injured in an explosion near a police station in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, northern Pakistan, Friday. Police said a vehicle carrying explosives crashed into the back wall of the station Thursday night, causing the wall to collapse, windows to shatter, and damage to nearby homes, resulting in civilian injuries. That's the end of our program. Thank you for your kind attention.